Joseph, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, it's great to be here with you, man.
Man,
It's
this
so
is
funny that we're sitting here with each other too.
so I'll tell the story.
Yeah.
I have an assistant who goes out and finds incredible guests. I usually say, hey, here's a list of people, or if not, they just say, we listen to this podcast and this person's has great information. They know what they're talking about. Let's bring them on. And I saw your name and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And I didn't have a bio attached, right? Because in the calendar you said, if you need the bio, let me know. I'll send you a link. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I sent a message to my assistant. I said, hey, Rose, I have no information about this guy. Like, who am I talking to? And so she sent me a ton of podcasts and YouTube videos that you've done before. So I
Mhm.
jump on YouTube and I'm watching the first video and I'm like, holy crap, I know this guy. And it so happened that one of our mentors introduced us some months ago. We had a conversation, and then it just, it was a great conversation, great connection. We went our separate ways, and then here we are now without knowing that we were going to be on this podcast.
Out of the blue, man.
Incredible. So it's so amazing.
Yeah.
I
Love when
always
things
say
like
on
that
this
happen.
podcast, things happen for a reason, you know?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Love it. So, Joseph, I brought you on because you're an expert in mindset when it comes to business as well as other things. And my Jewish brothers who are listening now, with everything that's happening in the world, anti-Semitism, so much hate, the war in Israel, focusing on work, having that the mindset needed to succeed at work has been very, very tough. I'll be very frank and honest and transparent. My business took a hit because we're sitting there fighting online and watching videos on Instagram, trying to protect our families in school and synagogue and all this type of stuff. And I was like, we need to make money. We need to go back and do what we're best at to be able to provide for ourselves, our families, and to support whatever cause that we want to support, right? Whether that's sending money to the troops, to Israel, our families back in Israel who are going through tough times. And so I'm just honored to have you here to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you too. And you're absolutely right. This is like, and we look at the stuff overseas, but I mean, just look at the stuff right here. An ex-president gets shot in the ear, giving a talk. And so, I mean, it is really scary times right now. And and I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's difficult to focus on our business with all of this stuff going on like it is. I mean, really, it might not be to the level of what COVID was when it happened, but I mean, there's so many different things going on in different places and disruptions and wars and all this stuff and everything. It is a difficult time, to put the blinders and focus on business. I don't think it's even possible right now.
Yeah.
So right now, what I'm helping my clients do is is to get excited about a portion of their vision, their business, which I do through a vision, and it is to like find a reprieve from all this stuff for a little while. We got to take care of our families. I know families have families overseas and stuff like that, and they can't talk to them right now. And there's so many of those things going on, and that's not going to just we can't just like hit a switch or click our fingers and that be gone and now focus on business. But we can still be active in growing our businesses and putting some attention on the business. And it might not be what we did a year ago, what we could put out a year and a half ago, what we could put out prior COVID, but we can still get that focus going there. And the way I help people do that is to really find an area of your business you can get excited about. Because what happens is when we can get excited about something like that and we're moving in, we're taking those actions, automatically we have a better mindset towards all that other stuff going on as far as possible solutions and how things could work out. If we're living in that fear, we're not focused on our business things, it's just going to grow that bigger and bigger, that fear.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a business growth expert, you work with a lot of business owners, CEOs to take their company to different levels and, make more
Yes.
money and the organization, all that type of stuff. I believe that a lot of CEOs, a lot of business owners and business leaders already have a lot of stress, right? Already have angst, anxiety, stress. They're dealing with everything. What is it that you do working? Let's put like the war aside, right? What is it that you
Yes.
do currently with your clients that helps them be able to refocus and sit in the mindset of success, growth, and joy and having fun?
Yeah. And through God, because I wouldn't be able to do it myself. Now, I've been a student of these works since I was 22 years old, and I'm above my 30s now. Pretty well above my
Really?
30s.
I didn't know.
Thank you. You're my favorite person in the world. But no, plus I spent 28 years in corporate America up to a vice president, helping companies in bankruptcy get back to profitability. So I know that stress. I have a firsthand experience with it. And one of the things I do, and this is where the SMT method, my coaching, what I do is different, is I don't have a one size fit all program. Every person, every individual, every business owner, high level CEO, president, whatever it is that I work with, I set the pathway for them to have a journey, but based on their uniqueness, based on their unique desires, based on their unique conditioning and things like that. And so it works on everybody, but every person has a different experience. But what it is united across the board is people achieving truly unrealistic results, like going from 7.5 million to $23 million in 12 calendar months, or going from 300,000 to 3 million, like over and over and over, these stories of these hundreds of clients I've worked with. And what we do is we tap into that subconscious conditioning, our program, our motherboard programming, I call it, which has all of our patterns, our paradigms, our habits, our past experiences, things we've been taught and told. All of that exists in there. And that's what that programming is, what determines whether we're successful at the level we want to be successful, or whether we struggle and we're focused on lack and all of that stuff. So the SMT method is designed to go in there right from day one and identify what that conditioning is that's holding us hostage, that holding us to mediocrity, and shift that to open up doorways to experience greater results with less effort on our part.
Let's talk about the subconscious real quick in the programming. What I'm hearing you saying is that, we've been programmed since we were young to think a certain way, act a certain way, deal with things a certain way. We take that into our business, and either it could be a plus, right? It can help us, or it could be to a detriment. And as we grow our businesses, that subconscious could be holding us back from the growth that we can have. And if we reprogram it, which is the methodology that you're talking about, that you teach, then it opens up those layers to a different motherboard, a different programming to be able to have that success.
Start achieving different results, better results. Yes. And the reason why that subconscious is so important in that programming is because that's what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So if you have somebody coming from fear of building a multi-million-dollar, but whatever it is, and they're coming from a place of fear, it's not going to trigger those brainwaves to take those actions that they're afraid of, so they don't take them. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And so when we identify what that is and use the tools of the program and shift that, all of a sudden now we've taken those actions. I got an example of this, maybe not business, but I always thought I was afraid of heights. So during COVID, I went out and learned how to hang glide.
Nice.
My first run is 3 steps off of a 2,000-foot mountaintop. Man, when I got the clearance to go and I stood there for a second, my heart started beating, and that voice in my head, which comes from the conditioning, said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I took the first step, and it got even louder and harder pounding. And I got that second step, and I could feel my heart beating in my throat. And then I took the third step, and as soon as my feet left the ground, it was just amazing. The fear was gone. Everything was gone. It was like, yes. And that's what happens when we get to that other side of that fear, or we get to that other side of that conditioning, and all of a sudden we see something happen that's better than we even expected to happen, that unfolds.
Now, let me ask you this question, because I've got a lot of friends, past clients, who think that because of their conditioning, they've had the success that they're having, and they can take that to the next level, right? Because I am the way I am, the stress I have, I've built what I've built. And what I'm hearing you say is that there's a constraint that's going to stop you. Like if you took a company from 3 million to 23 million, that subconscious constrained them at 3 million. When we let that go and opened up the mindset and reprogrammed it, it allowed them to go to 23 million.
Yes, I have clients who had been very successful in business, before they met me. And why they came to me is they still wanted to do something with their mind, but the rest of their being was so exhausted, fatigued, and beat up. They don't even want to think of another business because of the massive actions, exhaustive efforts, how much life they lost in making it successful and everything else.
Yeah.
And so when I start helping them to start a business venture, and all of a sudden they're finding they have more freedom of time to spend with their family, and their business is scaling quicker than anything else they've ever done, some of them will literally get upset about that and go, man, I wasted all those years. I missed that time with my kids. I did this, I did that to build this thing. And now you're showing me I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Makes sense. Now, why is it that let's talk about the mindset, right? Like unstoppable mindset and growth.
Yeah.
You've got a CEO, owns a company. You've got a business leader, might be a manager of a company, whatever that is. And they're doing the same thing over and over again. They're stuck in the programming, the subconscious. When we talk about this, some people are confused, right? Some people think to themselves, oh, I just need to get over something. I just got to, I just have to move forward. It doesn't really matter. And more stress is added on with the exterior things that are going on.
Yes. Yes. And what?
Go ahead. I just want to find out, like, as you work with somebody, like, how do we, as Jewish men who are listening to this, who are business leaders, what are the first steps in seeing that the subconscious programming that we have now is stopping us? What makes us say, like, wait a second, something is not right?
Yeah. Great question. First off, being in a place of building a business and being in a place of constant struggle, being in a place of constant stress, anxiety, fear, whatever it may be, when those things start building up, something's not right in the layout. Now, what we're conditioned to do is go back to this and come up with a new strategy and come up with a new, ideas and more to-dos. And what happens is we're coming from a place of stress and anxiety, right? And what we do, because it's not working through that process of that conditioning, is we try harder and we put more hours and we try to do more things. And all we're doing is growing that conditioning that's causing the limitation. So that's why some people will get to the point of just fatigue, burnout, and they'll just go, you know what, this ain't worth it, and they'll go another direction. Or people that stay with it are doing so almost, I don't want to say on their last leg, but they're doing so from a point of such a low production factor available to them because they're dealing with the stress, fear, anxiety, the burnout, all of that stuff with it. And what it's doing is taking years off of life and living that way. So in the conditioning, and now I want to talk about how we shift it, but in the conditioning, left unattended, when I talk about conditioning, some people would define it as living within our comfort zone.
Okay.
But within that conditioning, the more we live through that, the more powerful we grow that. So somebody that's stressed and anxious and starts working more hours and exhaustive efforts is only building that conditioning that's not working for them. Until we go in there and identify that and shift it, it'll just keep building that way.
And what I'm seeing or hearing and feeling is that when you build that conditioning, when you work harder, you just come home more stressed out. Your marriage is in disarray. You don't have time or patience with your kids. You get fat. Like it all because it just keeps growing and growing, like this monster keeps growing and growing in your mind.
And ultimately what happens is it starts out as dis-ease, right? And it ends up being disease. We end up with, people experience strokes, heart attacks, like, things like that. Even along the addiction world, whether it be gambling or alcohol,
Porn.
drugs, porn, whatever it is, we start using things to try to cope with living that way. So every individual, and even the organizations I've helped go from bankruptcy back to profitability, we start out with developing within the SMT method. There's what I call dynamic vision road mapping, where we set a vision for what does that business look like? What's it look like at the size you want it to be? And then how are you living in that? because nobody has a vision in their head that they have a $50 million organization, but they're killing themselves in all kinds of prescriptions and everything else doing it, right? The vision in our head is always that we're doing it, we're relaxed, we're excited, we're driven, things like that. So as we do that, we right away, as we're developing that vision, we right away start bumping up against that conditioning. So I'll give you an example of this. When I was working with a client that went from 7.5 to $23 million in 12 months, they only wanted to get to 10 million. I stretched them, helped them stretch that to 12.5, just because it started bumping up against some of those patterns and paradigms. Mm-hmm. Then we started moving into the program and we're working towards that. And when they flew by 12.5, they had a whole different outlook. They had all new programming within inside of them. That's what allowed them to get to that 23. And now when I tell you that, they've maintained that, because that's a level they want to be at. They got a team set up for everything else. They have maintained that for 7.5 years now.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I was talking with a friend yesterday, ex-client, just checking in, see how she's doing. And as a coach, we're both coaches. I asked her a question and she was stuck. I said, "What do you want?" So what do you want? Forget cast the vision. And she just sat there. She's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "All right, that's the first thing that you need to work on is what do you want?"
You're absolutely right. And I don't know how many people ask that when I'm doing a workshop or something like that. I'll pick people out and I'll say, what do you want? Like, what's something you really want in your life? And most people will say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell them, well, how can you ever expect to get someplace from where you are other than just staying in this place? I'll talk to people who are, in a position, they might be a manager or something like that, but they got these, and I'll say they're miserable doing what they're doing. And I go, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Yeah. Well, that's why you keep being miserable doing what you're doing. Yeah. You have to define what that is. Business owners, you got to define, what does that business look like? You don't have to do the strategies and all that stuff, but what does that business, what do you want to see this business do? What do you want your team to look like? How do you want to live life? What do you want that to afford you? How do you want to afford that to help other people in the world? Like all of that stuff goes into the dynamic vision. And as we're building that, we bump up against those patterns and those paradigms, those, the habits, so we can see those and then we can start shifting those. Yeah. And what happens as a result of that, and this is what I love about this program that I would not have known to build it in, but I love it's there, is we start seeing things open up. We start, businesses start growing. And it's not something they had on a to-do list that they were doing. And it's exactly how my business has grown. And they start, and all of a sudden these things start happening, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, out of the blue, things like that. We all have those every once in a while. But what we're doing now is getting into alignment with our conscious mind of what we want and our subconscious, triggering those brain waves to take the actions that lead to that. And all of a sudden it starts growing. It's almost like things just start showing up. We talk about that law of attraction and stuff, but it's true. But we have to do it, set it up unique to the individual that's going through that journey.
Yeah. It's, you talked about fears and all those types of things. When my father passed away in 2020, in 2021, I burned my business to the ground. And last year I was operating in such a massive fear because I didn't deal with the situation where my dad was my safety net. I mean, he was an incredible businessman. I always had him around. If something went wrong, he's like, "Don't worry, we got this," and realizing that I didn't have that put such a fear inside me. Yeah. Of like, can I do this? Am I going to mess up? Am I going to screw up? I'm going to be like, and I had to deal with a lot of those emotions in my mind and work some things out with coaches that I have and things like that. But I think that as men, especially, we go through things that happen in our lives, having a baby, getting married, somebody passing away. And it's not just like the outside world of what's happening with war and government and all and politics, but things are happening right around us and that we don't realize that are, how can I say this, that are expanding our subconscious that make it so we don't have the space and the energy to be as successful as we know that we can be. And that's what pisses us off.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And what happens to a lot of people then because they're not even aware of that conditioning playing out. What they do is start, I don't know a nice way to say it, but they start picking up the victim role. That it's
Yeah.
because of the economy, it's because of the competition, it's because of all these things. And what I tell people like that are talking about that is, okay, so explain to me how a company makes their greatest stride in 30 years in business in a down economy,
Yeah.
yet we have companies struggling in a boom.
Yeah.
It's
Makes
it's
sense.
not it's not those things. It's the conditioning that's causing it. And I love that you said that, because we most of the time we're not even aware that the conditioning is playing out.
Yeah. Of course, it's that's why they call it like the subconscious, right? It's hard to
Yeah,
find, hard to see.
yeah.
The ego's in the way. And we talk a lot about, faith on this podcast. We talk a lot about
Mhm.
spirituality. Um, and I believe
Huge.
that, yeah, it's massive. A guest that we just had on, he talked about, we were talking about masculinity, and he talked about the three things that are needed in masculinity was purpose, confidence, and faith. And I think that in times like what we're going through, we lose one of those three. Subconscious starts kicking in. Uh, one of our mentors, Dr. Hank, he calls it the committee,
Yeah.
right? The
Yes.
committee
Yes.
starts kicking in and talking
Yes.
all this craziness and
Yes.
stops you from doing what you're capable of and knowing that you can do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, Joseph.
Mhm.
When you're working with a client, and I think that you said it very clearly, one is to set the vision, right? Like to set the vision of like,
Starting
what
point.
is it that you want? Where do you see this company going? What needs to happen? What's kind of step two? What's step two after somebody sets a vision to be able to work on that subconscious or get out of that frame to be able to move forward?
Yeah. So one of the things I want to say about what you said, I agree with everything other than the fact of what needs to happen. I stay away from that. I have my clients stay away from that, because if we have faith and we tap into that faith, we lean on that faith, we trust in that faith, the direction will always show up of what we need to do.
Mm,
All we have to do is get clarity on what that looks like, where we want to go to. So once we do that, once we get clarity on that, then we start building the excitement of that. And then we really start stepping into bridging that gap from where we are to where we want to be. And one of the ways we do that in SMT is we develop systems of accelerating habits that are unique to the individual I'm working with. So
mm,
there's things that light you up, fire you up of what you want to do. And then there's things you probably can't stand doing.
yeah,
We all
agreed.
have that. So what's that?
Agreed. It came to my mind right now. I was talking with my team. I
Yeah,
love being on stage. I love speaking. I love workshops.
me too.
I am not a fan of doing 4 hours of Zoom calls a day.
Yes, yes. Now I
Not my thing.
love coaching and stuff, but for me, it's doing like written content. Like I get featured a lot. I'm very blessed that way and stuff. And when they want me to write an article, I'm like, I don't even think I want you to feature me. Because I don't like doing that stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And so, but what it is and a good example of this is because what happens is when we're doing things we're excited about doing, we have that attraction factor going that starts attracting in the people that are going to help us, the companies, that the business, the orders, whatever it is, to help fulfill that desire of that vision, but
Yeah,
what so here's a good analogy. You ever see somebody do a social media live and you can tell they can't stand doing what they're doing?
for sure.
How long do you watch that for?
Yeah, nothing. You're like, oh, there's no excitement. Swipe up, done.
I feel bad for the person, so I swipe. And
Yeah,
then you ever see somebody on there and they're like you, man, you put the camera on them and they just light up. They're home.
yeah,
And you listen to those guys longer, right?
yeah, for sure.
So when we're doing the things that light us up, we just find ways of doing that more often, which is doing the things we enjoy, doing it more often. Now all of a sudden around that, we're developing systems of accelerating habits, because when we do those things, we get greater results from it than when we're spending all of our time doing things we can't stand doing, but we think it needs to, and we're working in the business rather than on the business, and all of that stuff. We not because we can't do all of it. Like I still have to put my stuff together for taxes every year, and I hate doing that, but I still have to do it. But I do it in a way now where my whole focus is on looking at when I hit that send button to the accountant, and that'll get me through putting everything together in a very abbreviated time frame than when I used to take days to pull it all together, organize it, and everything else. So we do have some of that, but we try to add more time into the things that light us up, because that's what's going to grow our business quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that especially into in these times today, focusing and really getting to know you and your limitations is
Yes.
massive. It's
Oh,
super important. You
sorry.
with- It's okay. No worries. We can
Yeah,
edit
I
this
don't know
out.
what happened there.
I
Oh,
think
I
I
know
just
it shut my. Okay, here. I'm coming back live in
no,
3, 2.
there it
There
is.
oh my God.
It
That was
happened to me.
awesome. Sorry
No,
about that. But
no
yeah,
worries. So what I was saying is basically like I think it's more important than ever today to get to know you, your subconscious, the ego, to be able to create more success, right? So like as you're working with a coach, going through a system, instead of just sitting there, and you said it right. You know, Dr. Hanks has said it to us before. It's like you can't ask for the how, you can ask for the what, but the how, you got to have the faith for that to present itself. And I see a lot of people so stressed out and like, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How? And it just causes so much anxiety.
and how is the great procrastinator?
Mm,
Because we ask how,
damn
we
it.
don't know how, and all of a sudden, we get frustrated with it. Like you said, the fear, stress, all that stuff starts, and we just focus on something else, and we come back to it. And all of a sudden, people are 10 years later into their life, and they still haven't taken an action step into it. And it's because they're looking at the how. When we get all of everything, the mindset, total mindset, conscious, subconscious, body, mind, spirit, when we get it that into alignment, the actions show up for us that we need to take.
Yeah.
When we're spending time doing the things we enjoy doing and we're spending more time doing that, the actions we take, even the ideas of how to grow a business, we don't even have to have those because they'll show up. We'll be doing, and we've all experienced this with we call coincidences and stuff, where it's like I love windshield time. I love driving and stuff like that because it just puts me in this place. I'm focusing, but I don't need 100, and I'll get such creative thoughts of things of doing and such.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And we just get ourselves in those. Nature does that for me. We get ourselves in those places, and all of a sudden, everything starts sparking. Our creativity, which is our imagination, starts sparking, which we turn back on, which we're conditioned to shut down through schooling. And
Mm.
so it turns that back on, and then our intuition starts working properly. And all of a sudden, we're able to hear because our intuition, it always works perfectly, but it's only as loud as our willingness to hear it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that we do, and there goes mine. I think that we do, we do stop listening to our intuition, right? Because I don't know why, but I'm just going to take a guess because we think that we're in control all the time. We think that it's, when I say in control, it's like there's no faith. It's all on me. Um,
We're
we
conditioned that way.
Yeah, and if I'm not successful, like it's all on me, and so that conditioning is there. And if we just sit, like it's one of the reasons why I love Judaism so much is because we're supposed to pray 3 times a day, right? And if you look into it deeper, for me, I'm not a rabbi. I don't teach
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
This is just me. It gives me a point 3 times in the day to sit, breathe, meditate, and just think and be grateful instead of hitting a 12-hour day, just knocking it all out, just going all the way and going home and being exhausted. And I think that when you talk about like the business mindset in the subconscious, we have to really know if we want to get to that next level, 7 million to 23, to that next level, we have to be the driver and be responsible for knowing what's happening and be able to work on ourselves in in partnership with our faith to be able to get to the vision that we're building.
Yes, and so often, because again, the conditioning, we're taught if you want something, you got to figure out how to do it. All this one size fit all stuff came along because and it comes with the conditioning. If you want something, find somebody who has what you want and do what they did. But that
Yeah,
never works. It never
no,
brings the same results that way because we're
yeah,
different, individual, unique people from each other. So what works for me is not going to work for you. And that's why
yeah,
the SMT is laid out to lay out the pathway so every individual has a unique journey. But you're absolutely right with what you're saying there. We so often take we're taking all of the control on as it's ours. And how can you not be weighed down? How can you not be stressed and anxiety? And I'll tell you something really quick. I walked away from corporate America after the last organization I helped get back into profitability. And I had a couple clients, but I knew this is how I wanted to spend my life from the time I was 22 years old. But I had a great job. I was a vice president of sales in corporate America. I had the money and the car and all golf course membership, all that stuff. And everybody's telling me, man, you got it made. You got the life. But I was miserable because this is what I wanted to do. Yeah. So through a series of events I won't go into, I finally stepped out and said, okay, we got new owners in the organization. I'm done. I'm walking away. I had a couple clients and moved down here to the mountains of South Carolina. And I'll tell you, this thing built like wildfire using the tools of the SMT method. Yeah. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I had 12 or I think it was 13 events, live events I was supposed to be at, traveling around the US, cancel within a couple hours. And everything just fell off. I didn't have an online presence. So I did the best that I could do. But what I did is I went back into that conditioning. And I started working massive hours, exhaustive efforts, trying to create all this stuff and everything else, and just burying me and my team to the point of exhausting my team and such, and got nowhere. And it wasn't until I got back into these tools as a beginner again and going through them and developed that vision of what I want. I started with a whole new clean sheet of paper, developed that vision, and started taking the steps into it, when all of a sudden I would go hang gliding for a week out in Chattanooga, and I'd be out there setting the glider up, and I'd get a call from somebody that wanted to talk about coaching. Yeah. So there's nothing I was doing to promote this stuff. When I came back from that week, I started playing pickleball, which I'm addicted to. And I
gotta try that out. Everyone's talking about it.
I was playing 12 to 15 hours a week. And what I did was, if I didn't have an exact action I knew to take in the office, I would stay out of the office. And I go play pickleball, I'd lift weights, I'd do other things and stuff like that. I still had my social media guy and the things like that were going on. And within a month and a half, I went from 2 to 10 clients.
Nice. By the way, you've said SMT many times. What does it stand for?
Subconscious mindset training.
There you go. Gotcha. That's why we're talking about the subconscious mindset. Yeah. Love it. So, and for those, let me ask you this question. It seems very easy the way that we're speaking, right? Let's say you get a business owner whose business isn't doing well. They're losing money. For you to tell them, hey man, just have faith. Don't ask for the how. Let's think about the what. It's got to be activating for them, like with some anger. Like I know that they want to do the work, but do they come at you like, what are you talking about, Joseph? Like, let's get to it. What's going on here?
Yeah, I agree fully with you. And if I did that, I wouldn't have clients. I wouldn't come to me for coaching if that's how I handle it. This is what we're talking about, is the process of a 12-month period. Yeah. We're kind of rolled into a conversation. But yeah, I would never start by telling somebody, well, you got to pray. You got to pray. I mean, we get that, like that in itself doesn't do anything. But what I have is actionable items. Like when we and we'll talk about that. We're going to come out of the gate developing that vision, and it's going to be a bigger vision, like that vision I want to scare you. Yeah. Where you're going, I don't know how the heck I'd ever bring that to fruition. That's a level of vision we want to get. And then we start taking them through those steps, and they start experiencing that. And I'm telling you what, when somebody experiences where I can show them where their conditioning is playing out, and then I help them to shift that, man, I can't tell you how many people will call me within the weeks in between our scheduled calls and talk about breakthroughs that they have in different areas and everything else and stuff from that. Love that. Like, it's just amazing.
So incredible. I think that it's I'm a big fan of coaching. I have coaches myself. I think that in order to be able to be successful, you've got to allow somebody to see something that you're not seeing. And the methodology, the SMT methodology, sounds like it's not just, hey, let's get your profitability up. It's like a deeper sense of work so that you can take this forward with you into anywhere that you go.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it does. When all these places talk about, we got your roadmap and this and that, they don't even know who you are, but they got your roadmap. What I help people do, and the SMT method helps people do, is to develop their unique roadmap that they can take anywhere and apply it. But not only that, there's that level of personal transformation that each client receives and achieves. that carries into their family and their children and their business and their community. And like I'll tell you, I'll work with a business owner and his whole team will be mediocre in that struggle like that, using a line of credit to cover the gap. And then all of a sudden, within months, all of a sudden his team started producing and he's not said a word to him about it.
Yeah.
When we shift, everything in our world has to shift as well.
For sure. For sure. Love it. Joseph, where can people find out about you if they're interested to work with you?
Yeah, they can go to ifgtcoach.com.
Which stands for?
So it took me 35 years to launch this thing and get it going. So the only proper name for it, it's freaking go time.
Yeah.
Time to quit taking baby steps and step in and start achieving beyond what we even expect to.
Love it. Love it. So you can go to ifgtcoach.com. We'll put that in the show notes.
Okay. And then the other thing, anybody who wants to talk about this, has a question about this or anything else, can feel free to access my personal calendar at coachwithjoey.com. Set up a 15-minute call and we'll talk. And if nothing else, I try to be of service to everyone I speak to. So if you're stuck on something, if something doesn't make sense, I'll help you through that.
Love it. So as we had this whole conversation about the business mindset, the subconscious, the conscious mind, if you're going through those fears, those setbacks, or if you're thinking about this, you're like, oh my God, Joey, Joseph is talking about me exactly. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'll put the link in the show notes, coachwithjoey.com. It's been an honor having you on the show, brother. It's been awesome.
This has been
it's serendipitous that you're here. It's amazing. I always say that God puts guests on the show for a reason and at the right time for myself, for the listeners, for whatever needs to happen with us. And may you be blessed with strength and courage. Chazak Mematz.
I really appreciate that, man. Be blessed as well. Thank you. Great conversation. Enjoyed this thoroughly.
And if you're listening to this podcast, stay tuned for the next episode of the Tribesmen Podcast.